Hey everybody, welcome to week 2 of the Weekly Riff. I'm Benny the Bassman, and today we are featuring Justin Timberlake's new single, Filthy. Now, I love this new single, and I picked it to feature on the Weekly Riff for 3 main reasons. The first one, I think the note choices are really cool. The whole track is very electronic, but they opted to go with a live bass. I'm not quite sure who played on it. I'm gonna wager a guess that it was Adam Blackstone. And if you haven't heard of Adam Blackstone, check that guy out. He's sick. God, I love his playing. And he's had a pretty awesome career so far too. He is the musical director and the bass player, not only for Justin Timberlake, but he's also music directed and played bass for Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, and just a host of other super A-list acts. So when you see someone who's that busy with that many artists, you know they've got some stuff together. So anyway, I suspect it's him. It's got that tone, but really it could be anybody. I scoured the net and I couldn't find the credit for who actually played bass on the album. So now, like I said, I picked this tune for 3 main reasons. The first one is note choices. I think they're really cool and very original and pretty bold, actually, and we'll go over why. The second are the interesting discussion that it can create around the different fingerings that you could use to play it. So fingering choices, note choices, fingering choices, and then the actual feel as well. That's the third one. 3 interesting topics to cover, so let's get into it. First point, note choices. Why do I say that, and why do I think it's so interesting, and why did I say that it's bold? For you theory buffs out there, if you listen to the song, you will be able to detect that Justin and really most of the other accompaniment is playing in a very clearly minor key. And when I say minor, what does that mean? It means he's got a minor third in it, and probably a minor 7 in it as well, as opposed to the major. So the song's in A flat. When we're talking minor, the minor third of A flat is going to be B. So you're going to hear a lot of, when you hear that kind of note, then you know it feels kind of sad, as opposed to a C, which would be the major, a lot happier. So Justin sings a lot of B's, and there are also a lot of B's in the accompanying track. So that's why I say that the tune is predominantly minor. But what do we have on the bass line? We got a big fat C that the bass holds on. When a theory guy takes a look at that, they go, oh no, you can't have that. You can't have a C in an A flat minor song. But Justin Timberlake and all the other crazy producers that worked on the song basically said, yeah, it sounds cool. Why not? And I agree with them. I think it does sound pretty sick. The moral of the story here is don't be afraid to step outside the box. The rules of theory are there for good reason, but if you like the way something sounds, don't be afraid to step outside of the sort of typical rules of theory in order to create cool music. So thumbs up on the weird C in an A flat minor song. Second, the fingering choices. When I was trying to figure out how best to play this, I realized I was asking myself a bunch of interesting bass player-y questions. What position to play it in, what fingers to use, what was going to feel the best. And I came up with an option that may not have been most people's first choice, but I think after practicing it for a bit, it allows me to play it most like it sounds on the record and with the best feel. Now again, fingerings and everything like that can be very personal, so you can take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, although what I want you to take away from it is the type of questions that you ask yourself when you're figuring out how to play something on the bass. Because as long as you can ask yourself the questions and come up with good answers for them, you're right. Whatever those answers are, you're right. So here's what I came up with. Again, we're in the key of A flat, so it starts on the low A flat. Pretty undeniable that that is going to start on fret 4 of the E string. Now, when I was thinking about the first part of this riff, you know, you're always kind of trying to think ahead or to plan it a little bit ahead in the pattern in order to figure out which finger to play it with, which position to play it in. Naturally, my first thought was to start with my first finger on the A flat, which is fine, and then I can play the fifth, which is an E flat on the 6th fret of the A string. But here's where I start getting into trouble, because I'm thinking ahead and I'm going, okay, I'm gonna need to do the higher A flat and then slide up, and then I'm really up high here. And why I don't necessarily like being this high up on the neck in this part is because I've got to then do a bunch of faster notes and then hop way down to a low C sharp. That big hop there, just knowing myself, and again, everybody's physiology may be different, but knowing myself, if I'm up here, if I have to hop down there really fast, I know that these notes are going to feel a little rushed. Even if I play them in time, I'm thinking about making that quick hop, and so I'm going to not give these notes up here the full attention maybe that they deserve. That made me think, all right, what else can we do? Is there another way to play that part a little bit further down on the neck? And of course, yes, there is. We can play it on the G string. We've got a C here, and that will allow me to get right back down to this low C sharp a lot quicker without much shifting. So okay, great. I want to play this part here. Perfect. How do we get there? Am I going to do still the first finger thing? It's kind of awkward. I don't really like that. Plus he's sliding into it. So then I was thinking, all right, I almost never play fifths like this, but in this particular song, I think it warrants it. So then I came up with this idea. What happens if I play the low E flat with, or the low A flat, sorry, the first note of the riff, with my fourth finger, and then the E flat with my first finger on the D string. Again, kind of a weird shape. I'm much more used to playing fifths with my first finger and my third finger this way. A lot more comfortable, and visually it makes more sense to me. But in this case, for this riff, I thought it would be better for the overall vibe and the groove of it if I played it fourth finger, first finger. So low A flat with my fourth finger, and then E flat with my first finger on the D string. And then that sets us up nicely for the next part too. So then we've got E flat, A flat, first finger on the D string and then the G string. And then we have the A flat, B flat, A flat, so first finger, third finger, first finger. And then we're just going to take our third finger because it's a strong one. Whenever you slide, you want to slide on preferably not your fourth finger because it's a bit weak. And you may temporarily leave the fretboard with it, so you get a little bit of a crackle. We're going 1, 3, 1, and then slide up 2 frets with my third finger to the C, and then stay there. 1, 3, 1, and then 4 to hit the A flat on the D string. And then we don't have very far to jump at all, do we? We're right there already to go back down to the low C sharp. So our plan, our master plan so far is looks like this so far. If you watched last week's Weekly Riff on Charlie Puth's Attention, talked a little bit about disco. This is a disco part. So we're going to have octaves, and we're going to have the weight be a lot heavier on the first low part of the octave and a lot lighter on the second higher part of the octave. So we've got 2 of those. Then we need to get to an E octave shape. In order to end up back at the A flat on my fourth finger, I opted to play this E octave with my low open E string, so that then I can go E flat with the fourth finger, and then we're right back to the beginning again. The other option would have been to do the 5th fret on the B string for that octave. But then look where we are. We're on the low E flat with my 1st finger, and I know I want to start this riff with my 4th finger, so that is a bit awkward. So instead of going, I'm going to go, and then that leads me right back into the beginning of the riff. Now again, these are very atypical shapes to be playing this kind of a pattern in. It's kind of a deceptively difficult riff to play, which is why I picked it. You can see what kind of questions I ask myself when I'm trying to figure out how to play this thing. And I kind of convinced myself that even though these shapes are atypical and maybe a bit weird, they're the best for this particular riff. So again, I'll play the whole thing, kind of how it looks. We start with our 4th finger on the A flat, slide up, stay there, octave, open E, E flat, and then we're back to the A flat with our 4th finger. Now, as always, when we're learning something that might be a little bit challenging, we want to slow it down first. For this particular riff, because it's so groovy and there's so much of a vibe to it, I didn't really want to just play along with a metronome to it because it really didn't make me feel like I was playing the song, and I couldn't really get into it. I created my own little click track, and I kind of copped a bit of the drum feel and a little bit of the effects from the song to play along with so that I could feel more like I was actually playing the groove. I wrote the bass drum part in Sibelius and then just recorded it in. Then I overdubbed clapping on the backbeat. I think I did it 5 times just to get a little bit of a layered clapping effect. And then I just recorded myself going ch-ch-ch to get a little bit more of the vibe of the song. So it took me maybe 10 minutes. And it was really fun to play along with. So another thing that I highly recommend you guys experiment around with if you've got any sort of recording software. So we're going to slow it down. I had this track at quarter note equals 96. So quick maths. 96 divided by 2 is 48. So half speed would be quarter note equals 48. Now Pro Tools is going to let me just expand my little click track out to be halftime. So that's what I'm gonna do for you. Now once we've overcome the potentially strange shapes that we've decided to use in this riff, let's speed it up to 3/4. So quick maths, 3/4 of 96 is clear. 96 times 0.75 equals 72. Let's try it at 72. Okay, so now we're feeling good with the riff at 3/4 speed. We can probably play it at full speed. It's not that technically challenging, it's just a bit weird on the fingerings. And this leads me to my third point that I wanted to talk about today, which was feel. Now, what is feel? It's kind of difficult to explain. When people talk about feel, they usually talk about whether something is right on the beat, whether it's a bit ahead of the beat, or whether it's a bit behind the beat, and all three of those things provide the listener with a little bit of a different experience when they're listening to it. Right on the beat is fairly standard. If you're really nailing playing right on the beat, things can feel confident and precise, which is great. If you're playing a little bit too far ahead of the beat, sometimes things could feel rushed or frantic. Probably the least advisable out of the three options is playing ahead of the beat, although certain bands have managed to master the art of playing just a little bit ahead. Now, obviously, the whole band can't be playing ahead, but say if the drummer's playing right on the beat, then a couple instruments would be pushing it just a little bit, or maybe the instruments are playing on the beat and the drummer's just pushing ever so slightly ahead of the beat. The band I'm thinking of most notably would be Earth, Wind & Fire in their live recordings. If you have any Earth, Wind & Fire live recordings, listen to them. They're always pushing, they're always ahead of the beat, and it creates just this sort of boundless energy, which I think is really cool. Ahead of the beat can have an energetic, or if it's too much, maybe frantic type of feel. And then behind the beat can have more of like a sort of a cool, laid back type of a feel if you play it correctly. And in this riff, a lot of it is just slightly behind the beat, which gives it this kind of R&B-ish, laid back yet funky kind of vibe to it. So when I play this at full speed now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it three different ways. I'm going to start by playing it right on the beat, then I'm going to play it a little bit ahead of the beat, and I'm going to play it a little bit behind the beat. This is a really good thing to practice in general, just to be able to do, or at least to think about. There will be a time and a place to play all three of these different types of ways. And again, it's just about adding to your arsenal as a bass player. So things to think about, maybe things to practice, and you'll see the different effect that each one has on the sound of this particular riff. So I think I've blabbed on long enough. Here's the riff at full speed. I'll put the notation in the tabs up, and I will play it first right on the beat, second ahead of the beat, and third behind the beat. Here we go. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed episode 2 of the Weekly Riff featuring the new single by Justin Timberlake, Filthy. If you did, and if you found it helpful, please smash that thumbs up button and consider subscribing to the channel too. It would really help me out as I'm trying to grow this channel as it's quite new. I will be releasing two weekly videos. One on Wednesday will be more in this format, breaking down a riff and doing a mini bass lesson on it. And the second video will be released on Friday, which will just be a full cover with transcription and tabs underneath. Hope everyone's having a great day. And until next time, Benny the Bassman signing off.